To the Jedi, combat is never the first option. It should always be the last resort, guided by discipline, honor, and the code older than the Republic itself. But when faced with the unparalleled threat of a Sith Lord, everything changes. In this holocron, we'll explore the Jedi's strict rules of engagement, when to fight, how to approach a Sith Lord, and why their philosophy demands that they seek balance even in the midst of chaos. From ancient duels to epic battles of the Clone Wars, let us unravel what it truly means to engage a Dark Lord of the Sith. The Jedi stand for wisdom, balance, and today, they stand for remarkable savings. A sale of galactic proportions has arrived. 50% off the Star Wars merch page, and using my code WAVE, you'll get an additional 15% off your whole order, but only for the next few days. Anyway friends, let's open the holocron. At a very young age, the Jedi were taught a code specifically having to do with confronting Sith Lords. The Jedi code strictly forbade aggression here, as it was perceived strictly as a path to the dark side. Jedi were taught to remain calm, even in the face of provocation. This was to not allow anger and fear to dictate their action. Confronting a Sith Lord, one who embodies aggression, tested this inherent principle to its absolute limits. Facing a Sith was difficult, as the Jedi were taught to de-escalate conflicts at all cost, unless a fight was absolutely necessary. But to take things deeper, a Jedi's primary duty was to safeguard the lives of others, especially when encountering a Sith Lord. If that Sith Lord threatened civilians, the Jedi were obligated to prioritize their safety over engaging in direct combat. We see this multiple times in the Clone Wars, as well as later with Obi-Wan Kenobi. In most cases, the Jedi were taught to capture and not kill. The Jedi sought to avoid killing at all costs, even when dealing with a Sith Lord though. They believed in the potential for redemption, and considered taking a life as a last resort. However, this principle often conflicted with the Sith's violent inherent nature, and over time, this philosophy would change within the Jedi Order. The Jedi would become far less optimistic when it had to do with Sith Lords, and most Sith Lords, if not all of them, were kill on sight. The Jedi were trained to recognize that the Sith were dangerous to them on a deeper level, to recognize and resist the Sith's ability to exploit emotions such as anger, fear, and doubt. The Sith used the psychological manipulation to break their opponent's resolve, tempt them with the dark side and its power. The Jedi needed to maintain an emotional control and center in order to avoid this trap. The Jedi's guidelines when encountering a Sith Lord emphasized their commitment to peace, redemption, and the preservation of life. But there's a deep distinction here. These principles were tested in the face of the Sith's aggression, and while the rules maintained a Jedi's moral integrity, they highlighted the philosophical divide between the light and the dark side of the Force, ultimately shaping the galaxy's most iconic conflict. The Jedi struggled to apprehend Sith peacefully and without succumbing to anger due to the inherent nature of the Sith and the emotional and philosophical challenges involved. A Jedi facing a Sith isn't just a Jedi facing a thug. A Sith in itself is viewed as a dangerous weapon to the Jedi, a threat to life itself. The struggle was reoccurring and an important theme in many Star Wars stories. How did the Jedi handle their ideals in the reality of dealing with the Sith's inherent malevolence? To look at this, we have to examine the nature of a Sith Lord. The Sith Lord's core philosophy revolves around manipulation, aggression, the pursuit of power. This starkly contrasts the Jedi's principles of peace and selflessness. Sith rarely surrender. Instead, they use confrontation as a chance to provoke anger and doubt within the Jedi. The Sith welcome this, and the Jedi know it. The Sith want the confrontation with the Jedi. The Sith master manipulation on a deeper level than their Jedi counterparts do. This forces the Jedi into morally ambiguous situations, which tests their resolve. A fight with a Sith Lord is so intense because it is not just a physical battle, it is a spiritual one. The Sith's job was to test the very limits of the Jedi code, and what a Jedi would do in the face of utter darkness and despair. The Jedi cannot handle it peacefully and without anger as a reflection of their core philosophy, clashing with the Sith's destructive nature. While their commitment to the Jedi Code made them noble, it also made their task nearly impossible. It showcases the humanity of individual Jedi, the ultimate challenge of living up to this ideal, something that seems to be impossible. The Sith launch verbal attacks on the Jedi, targeting principles and beliefs such as the practices that they view as weakness. These verbal criticisms were designed to undermine the Jedi's confidence, to sow doubt, exploit vulnerabilities in their philosophy. They highlight the hypocrisy of the Jedi Code. The Sith accused the Jedi of being hypocrites, preaching peace while participating in war. wielding dangerous weapons that they claim is that of a shield. They criticize the Jedi for suppressing emotion, arguing that it leads to stagnation and an inability to embrace true power and enlightenment. The Sith hate the Jedi for their emphasis on detachment and the suppression of personal desires. The Sith claim that the Jedi keep all away from true freedom. They frame them as an oppressive institution that has stifled creativity and individuality, have abused the great gift of the Force, compared to the Sith philosophy of personal empowerment. The Sith ridicule them for being overly idealistic, for failing to see the bigger picture at play. They portray the Jedi as pawns of a corrupt system, unable to adapt to the galaxy's harsh reality. They frame themselves as realists, claiming that they embrace the truth of the galaxy's inherent chaos and the inevitability of power. They say that they do not embrace the full potential of the Force, particularly the dark side. They claim that the Jedi were limiting themselves, denying emotions such as anger, fear, and passion. The Sith see this as only pure, untapped power and potential. They accuse the Jedi of failing to protect the galaxy from suffering and chaos, pointing out the Jedi's inability to prevent war, corruption, and the rise of even the Sith themselves as an example. They paint the Jedi as ineffectual, complicit in the galaxy's pain. The Sith say that they have been made cold, disconnected from life, teaching detachment. They emphasize that the Sith philosophy is about embracing passion, embracing a greater connection to a new part of the Force. The Sith accuse the Jedi of being arrogant, self-righteous, claiming that they falsely believe themselves to be the ultimate moral authority in the galaxy. They mock the Jedi's inability to see their own flaws, acknowledge their limitations of their philosophy. Can you only imagine all of this being flung at a young Jedi Padawan? The Sith's verbal attacks on the Jedi Order were strategically designed to exploit philosophical, emotional, and structural vulnerability. They target the Jedi ideals. They sought to undermine their enemies' confidence, to lure them towards the dark side, to weaken them. These criticisms not only created tension between two ideologies, but forced the Jedi to confront their own flaws, to adapt to the challenges posed by their ancient foe. And there, my friends, is the answer. That is why the Jedi have to resort to violence against a Sith. A Sith Lord attacks the very ideals of the Jedi, stands staunchly opposed to it. For the Jedi, meeting the Sith with violence is never a choice made lightly. It is a grim necessity born from the Sith's relentless pursuit of domination and destruction. The Jedi's purpose is to defend peace, to protect the innocent, but against the dark side's unyielding aggression, peacekeepers must sometimes become warriors. Violence is not the Jedi way, but when faced with an opponent who respects no life, no balance, and no morality, the light side must stand firm. Through their actions, the Jedi seek not to destroy their enemy, but to preserve the hope of the galaxy free from fear and oppression. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this exploration of the Jedi's code and their ultimate challenge. Don't forget to check out the sale on the Star Wars merch page, 50% off, and then an additional 15% off with code WAVE. And remember, even in the darkest moments, the light is never truly extinguished. May the Force be with you.